The Midday Show, live on QBS.
All right, we are setting the stage and we are just about to welcome our very special resource guest today on the Midday Show. Here is the topic that we're going to get into: renting versus buying property in Qatar. So as you know, many expats here in Qatar live in properties provided by their employer, and some are renting. Deciding between renting and buying is not easy, whether you're living in Qatar, moving abroad, or just sharing to think about your future. It depends on your budget, your lifestyle, your job, and your long-term plans. So today, we'll talk about which one is the best option and how to make a smart housing decision, both locally and internationally. Joining us is an expert in real estate in Qatar and co-founder of Society International Real Estate, a global real estate network. Mr. Jeffrey Asselstein is here. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey. It is great to have you, and we are just so excited to have you here today live on the show because historically, we've never talked about property or renting or buying in terms of living here in Qatar as an expat or as somebody who's been staying here for the longest time. So great to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me in. It's great. I've been a long-time listener, 19 years now. So it's great to be on the show.
You must be one of those who knew the station even before I did when
Indeed.
I came to Qatar. So thank you. It's great to know that you are a regular listener. Now, as I was saying earlier, we're really excited to talk about this topic, and it's I guess our stars have aligned that you've freed your schedule to be here with us for an hour and a half or so. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Please do.
Okay, so let's start with what are the main pros and cons of renting versus buying a property here in Qatar. So take us through that.
Sure. I think probably the first place I'll start is that the decision about renting and buying in Qatar is probably not that different from anywhere where you live, whether yourself in the Philippines, myself from Canada. It's often a question that people have. Do I do that or do I not? Although it's a little bit different for all of us because the majority of people are expatriates, and so as much as, again, I've been here for 19 years and plan to be here for a very long time, some people here are on shorter term contracts or they're not exactly sure. So the decision making changes a little bit because of, to some degree, the temporary nature of their time here. Transient, great word. So when speaking to people who are looking to buy here, I think it's, again, the same decision. What happens with most people is, obviously, when they come, you referred to it earlier, either the company provides it or they find a place to live.
Yeah.
I would really recommend to anybody moving to any new country to rent at least for the first year. Rent for the first year, get an idea of what the market's like, get an idea of where you like to live, get an idea of the dynamics that are happening, and using that as a real starting point. Many years ago, a friend of mine was retiring and he was moving to Cyprus, and I said, "Are you buying?" And he goes, "No, I'm going to rent for the first year and get a feel for it." And I think that's good advice for anybody.
Is that wise?
I just think so, because for most people, I was speaking to one of your colleagues before coming on, and we were both saying how, for most people, investing in property is the biggest investment they'll do in their life.
Absolutely.
Right?
As an adult.
As an adult, it's, you think of a car being, priced, whatever that car would be, normally it's probably going to be 10 times at least that, if not more, for a property.
Right.
Often many more times than 10 times higher. So it's such a big investment. It's a long-term investment. And that's the other key part of it, is because property in its nature is long-term, and I would always recommend people to look at it on a long-term basis. You'll want to make sure you're comfortable with your decision.
Yeah.
As a real starting point. So I think one of the key things to look at when making that decision is getting a good view of how long you're going to be here. I think when I came to Doha in 2006, I thought 3 to 5 years, and here we are 19 years later.
Don't we all start with that
exactly.
vision? I mean, it's a very good vision to have,
Yep.
especially if you've just landed, you're fresh from whatever country you used to live in for a certain amount of time. You come here and you think to yourself, okay, 5 years tops.
Yep.
But you go beyond that. At what point do you consider, okay, maybe it's time to buy instead of rent?
Well, and that's a great point. And many times I've had people say, I'm tired of paying rent. Right? If I look at the amount of rent I've spent over the last 5 years, I could pretty much own a property or own the property I'm living in.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, whatever it is, you start thinking, hold on, every year I'm paying this out, and I would have been better to own my own, live in my own, and I could have saved all that rent money. I agree with a lot of that. I don't agree with it quite 100% because there are a lot of benefits from renting, or to renting as opposed to buying. So I don't think it's quite as cut and dried. That I've never felt that renting is wasting money and just throwing it away. I don't think that's accurate. But it's important that you do take your time and make a wise decision, because there are benefits of doing both.
Yeah. Does family dynamic also come into play?
Yeah, sure. If it's often because we've been doing this now for so long. I'll meet somebody who will buy when, say, they're newly married, and they'll still get a 1-bedroom, and then 6 years later they've got 3 kids.
Yeah,
and so they
crowded.
They need a bigger place. And
Yeah.
as their family grows, then they'll want to expand the number of bedrooms they have, the size they have, and then as the kids get older and maybe head off to university, and for a lot of expatriate families, the kids won't stay; they'll go back to university to wherever their home country is,
correct,
and may or may not return afterwards. So that starts to form part of it, part of people's decision making as far as what type of property that they have, and that's why I always like to suggest look at it on a long-term basis. Not too differently than you would whether it's back home or somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question here. I'd like to, so I think that pretty much sorted out how to get started, whether you should consider buying or renting for the long haul. But Jeffrey, for people now are new here in Qatar, expats or residents unsure about staying long term, what's the smarter move for them? Well, I think we touched on that. It's to rent.
Again, I would say at least the first year.
Okay.
Right? And, if I look at the rental contracts that we do, probably 95% of the rental contracts done are 1 year. Sometimes
correct.
people do a 2 or 3 year, but normally it's 1 year.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of any deals where one can get a better deal or to lock in for 3-year contract? I've never, because I've been renting for quite some time now.
Yeah.
There has never been an offer to me by the property like, say, Chloe, we're going to lock you in for 3 years. If you stay with us, we're going to give you this deal. Have you ever? Is that even existing here?
Oh, it does. It's rare.
Okay.
So it's always it's interesting because you're getting a bit of a trade-off whether you're obviously the tenant or the landlord. Because if you're locked in, you obviously have certainty of what your rent's going to be.
Correct.
And sometimes I've seen contracts where it's been locked in that okay, this is the rent for the first year, this is a higher rent for the second year, and a higher rent for the third year. Now, that would be very rare in today's market. People don't, want to agree to price increases.
Yeah.
I've always found that landlords are very optimistic that rents will increase in the coming years, and tenants are always very optimistic that rents will decrease.
Yeah.
And so both often don't want to lock in on the hope that hopefully as a landlord, my property is going to be, I'll be able to charge more in the future years, so I don't want to lock in. And likewise, tenants will say, I'm hoping that prices go down, so I don't want to lock in.
Pray for it, perhaps.
Yeah. And so there's always that dynamic that goes on. I always like to say, when I meet people and tell people what I do for a living, the first question is, how's the market? So I'll always say, well,
market, yes, exactly.
Are you a tenant? Are you a landlord? Are you a buyer or are you a seller? Because the answer to that question will be very different depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Because your view of the market as a tenant would be very different from someone's view of the market as a landlord and how they look at it. So I think, again, we've kind of covered it off, but if moving here, I'd always advise people at least the first year, definitely rent, and then get a feel. The other big dynamic, frankly, is the job that you've taken. So you've come for a role and, see how that role's going and how's the company doing and, get a good confident feel for how that's working. And then once you have that confidence, then I would always encourage people. If I look back over the 19 years I've been here, I keep referring to it, I think a lot of people regret not having bought.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that so?
Because, again, they've done, like we said, right? They come here for 2 or 3 years and they end up staying 5, 10, 15.
Yeah.
Think, all those years that I've been paying rent, I could have, had I bought my own, I would have actually owned my property by now.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. So, again, I encourage people in the short term, stick with renting. But if you're starting to get a longer term view, I think it makes a lot of sense to consider seriously the benefits of owning your own property.
Okay.
It can have major benefits.
From a personal/expert standpoint, numerically, what is that threshold, would you say?
Yeah.
Considering family dynamic, you said job security, At which point would you say, like, in terms of number of years? Like,
If you have that's a great question, though. If you have let's say if you have a 3 to 5 year time
Okay.
horizon,
That's
then
a
it
time
starts
frame.
making sense. Yeah.
Okay.
It makes more sense then.
Yeah.
The
'Cause
thing is,
it could be different from person to person, but like as an expat living here has all those considerations down pat.
yeah, it's 100% different from person to person.
Correct.
My brother has a phrase. He goes, "I like to sleep at night."
What does that mean?
So whatever decision you make, you want to
okay.
go to sleep at night. And so
Right.
I've seen people rent above their means because they wanted X and Y and they've gone way above their budget and they don't sleep at night because they're worried about how to pay rent, or they
I get it.
buy beyond their means. So it's like my brother says, I like to sleep at night. So I want, buy a property that you can afford, and maybe things go off the rails a little bit or things are a little bit more difficult, some expenses hit you. You want to have that space that you can manage your expenses.
Yeah.
Again, whether it's buying a property or renting, renting will be your highest check every month. By far.
Yeah.
Right? It's bigger than your car payments, bigger than your redo bill, thank God. Right? It's bigger than your OSN or BN Sports. It'll be bigger than all those things. So
Yeah.
you need to, that's a big part of your income. Normally 30 to 40% of people's income goes towards their housing.
Correct.
So
That's
you
right.
need to make sure you think long and hard about doing that.
And let that be the statement that is drilled into everyone's mind
Including
right
my own.
now. The listeners who would be thinking about that, Sometimes people kind of bite more than what they can chew, so to
Yep.
speak.
Yep.
Because a property is a big deal
Yeah.
with a capital B-I-G. So many of our listeners, Jeffrey, are renting because they simply cannot afford the high down payment. Is there a way for them to work toward owning a home someday?
Yeah. Again, this is a global issue. Again, I've in my own country, it's a big issue for first-time home buyers to get, as they say in England, to get on the property ladder.
Yeah.
And
there's such a thing now.
yeah, no, it's a big issue. So in a lot of countries, they'll have special programs for first-time home buyers. So in Qatar, there's some really good opportunities like that. And so where that comment comes in is typically people would buy a home that's already finished and they buy it with a mortgage. So with a mortgage, you would typically need 30% down payment.
Correct.
So, to state the obvious, if you're going to buy a $1 million real property, that's 300,000 reals. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To have saved up
No
over the years,
kidding.
right?
Yeah.
It's almost $100,000. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of money. So it can be quite difficult for people to reach that down payment. So a few of the developers that we work with have properties which are finished that they can buy with, say, 20%, or they can take possession with 20% down and then move in and then pay it over, say, a 5 to 6 year time period. The other popular program that is, again, available through a number of developers is when they're buying a property that's off plan. So in other words, it's not completed, it's under construction, is you have a much lower threshold to start making payments.
Yeah.
So you pay sometimes, we actually have one program where it's effectively 0% down payment and
Okay.
the first payments are a couple months later.
So these are not the ready for occupancy type of properties.
So the ones with the longer payment plans tend to not be ready. So they'll be, say, 1 to 3 years from completion.
Okay.
So they can go in at lower thresholds, be paying. Again, they haven't moved in yet, so that's that has its own challenges. But they can take. They have the ability to say, okay, this is my unit. I've signed a contract for it. They start making payments, and then in, say, 2 to 3 years, when that property is finished, they make a payment. Then they can move in and then continue to pay. Again, depending on the particular program for that project, over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And in the meantime, they can benefit from living in the property.
Right.
So that is a really good way that people that don't have the money for a down payment can afford to get on the property ladder. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have taken advantage of that.
Okay. Which ones would you, the one, is it the first option or second option?
So the big issue on that is, does the person need to move in right away?
Okay.
So if they need to move in right away, you'll tend to have to put together a higher down payment.
Right.
And then, so we have a few projects where they're already finished. So they put in normally about 20% and they can move in. But ones with a lower down payment, they'll be off plan or under construction. So they'll take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So again, it'll come down to, do they have the money for that down payment?
Yeah.
Do they have the money for the payments?
Yeah.
So that's what it'll come down to. So it'll be very particular to each individual's needs, what
Okay.
works well for them.
Noted on
Yeah.
that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Pleasure.
creating that picture for us and the options that are readily available now in the market.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking to Jeffrey Asselstein. He is a Qatar real estate expert, among other things that we are really digging into and asking him today on the show, renting versus buying. And if you've got any questions within the subject, it's a hot topic that we really want to get more of. 146 right now. The numbers are 55975. Wait, 55. What am I saying? 55975 are the numbers on WhatsApp. Send in your questions, all right, if you've got anything in mind right now. And we've been talking nonstop off the air, but bringing it at the forefront, are there any government or developer programs that make property more accessible to, let's say, lower or middle income individuals? And consider, myself included here.
So, I'll split it into two parts. On the rental side, there is a program from the government called ISCAM. And I think it's specifically focused for government employees.
Okay.
So there's a lot of properties that the government has rented through this ISCAM program where they will, say, take a building, they'll rent the entire building from the owner, from the landlord, and they'll rent it at a price that probably tends to be a bit below market, and then they'll provide that accommodation to their own employees.
Okay.
Equally, we'll have people call us to say, is this property available for ISCAM? So the tenant will come to us directly, and they'll say, if this property is available for ISCAM, then ISCAM themselves will sign the lease. The tenant will move in. And so the benefit to the tenant is they pay overall a lower rent than would normally be in the market.
Yeah. The
benefit for the landlord, they are getting a little bit less rent than normal, but they do have a government guarantee.
Right.
So I know a lot of families have benefited tremendously from the government program. It's helped a lot of people, particularly people I know in the military, and I believe also for Hamid and the police forces.
Correct.
There's been a lot of people that the government has really supported a lot of working families through this program.
Yeah, and these are nice places to live in too.
Yeah, it's not
access to pool, gym, even
well,
sauna,
indeed, yeah.
Parks.
There's sometimes when you hear that, people have a certain image of what that property might be like, but there's some of the best properties in the country that I've seen.
Some gated too.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I know there was a particular building that we actually did a lot of work with where, again, pool, sauna, kids club, they had everything. So it can be very popular. And then on the developer programs, and I was referring to that a little bit in the first section, just basically through the payment programs that different developers offer, that I want to be slightly careful how I'd say it. I wouldn't necessarily say lower income, but probably more middle income people.
Yeah.
Again, the big challenge is always the down payment. So with a certain programs, there's one or two developers also that have lease to own programs, which is interesting in that you effectively agree to buy a property now at a certain price. But what you do is instead of actually buying it, you rent it for 3 years.
Yeah.
Then over those 3 years, you can make the final decision. Do you want to go ahead and buy it?
Okay.
And then over those 3 years of the rent that you've paid, 80% of that rent will go towards the purchase price.
Right.
So it's really quite an excellent program because what it allows you to do is I'm going to go through that period and I'll see how the market is. I'll see how my job is. And I've always said if the price goes up tremendously, well, you're locked in on the price. So you'll benefit. If the price goes down dramatically, well, then you were just a tenant and you say, okay, I've been a tenant and I won't continue, and you're not stuck with a property.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits from that kind of program. There aren't a lot of them. In fact, I hope there's more to come in the future.
Yeah.
But
So lease to own, a very flexible, I like that deal.
It's a neat opportunity that a lot of people have taken advantage of. And I've had people that, rented it, they did it for 4 years and then bought the property. And I know a few that even after 1 year said, no, okay, I'm fine. I'm just going to buy it now.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes years to fall in love with a place. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Indeed. Or sometimes the problem is you fall in love.
Fall out of it.
And you fall out of it. So you see it the first day and you love it, and then you buy it, and then maybe down the road you think, maybe it's not quite what I thought it was. So it's a great way to test the market and test the property and make sure you're happy with it before committing long term to it.
So, okay, which brings me to this next question. For someone, Jeffrey, for someone on a work visa or living under sponsorship, buying property can still feel risky. So what happens to the property if they lose their sponsorship or leave the country, for instance? I mean, this is, I wouldn't say this is an isolated case because this does happen. They commit to purchasing a property of their own. However, tides change and something that's unimaginable, or probably they did not think that would happen, happened.
Yep.
Can they still keep it while living outside of the country, outside of Qatar?
But great question again. I have really good news for you.
Yeah, tell me.
So 100% you can keep the property. And we have many of the clients that we work with that bought property while they were living here. In fact, if I go back to when we first formed the company, we started the company in 2009, but when I moved here in 2006, a lot of expatriates were buying. If you kind of go back in time before the run up to the financial crisis in 2008, the global financial crisis, a lot of people were investing in real estate. So a lot of people bought here. The Pearl wasn't even open yet, but people were buying in the Pearl. They were buying in Zigzag Tower. They're buying in some of the properties in Lucille. And then with the financial crisis and other things that happened, maybe they left the country, or they changed jobs, or they did something differently. But we have a lot of customers that bought during that time period who don't live here anymore that still own the property. There's absolutely, well, I won't even say there's no restriction, but the laws completely allow people that do not live in Qatar to own property here. And we have lots and lots and lots of people that do that. In fact, the government is putting a lot of steps in place now to even more encourage foreign investors to invest in Qatar.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big misconception in the market that if you leave, you have to sell it. You don't. If you leave, you can't receive the rent. You can. If you leave, you can't have a bank account. You can.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in place that allow you to keep the property and allow you to keep receiving rental income.
Yeah.
And ourselves, we particularly help landlords who are not here. We manage the property for them. So we help collect the rent for them. We send them funds to them for the rental amount, and they keep the property. So it's I think the question's valid in that a lot of people think it's risky.
Yeah.
It's a lot lower risk than people think it is. In fact, again, I know many people that don't live in Qatar that still own their property here.
Thank you for enlightening us about that, because I too would think, like, for example, not even property, just a car.
Yep.
For instance, if you're moving out of the country or your contract's done, you would imagine if I bought a car, I would have to sell it once I mean, that's, of course, it's different from when you're buying a property or land or house or an apartment. But I thought before, where can I find help if I ever, keep a property still in Qatar and I'm no longer working in the country? So that answers the question. And my follow-up to that is, what is a smart way to manage a property you purchased if you're living abroad? Let's expand a little on what you said, that you have guys like yourself doing that now. What exactly can you do for those who are in this scenario?
Yeah, so either through our company or others in the market, you basically have the phrase is property management. So we would help, let's say if you need a tenant, we'll help you find a tenant.
Yeah.
And then once that tenant moves in, we'll move the tenant in. And then if the tenant has any problems, they call us instead of calling you as a landlord.
Right.
And so again, either we offer that or our competitors do as well. And so it allows you to be very hands-off. We take care of all the issues with the tenant directly. We receive the rent, we help collect it, we make sure that any bills are paid, any repairs are being done. In fact, we have a lot of customers that actually live in Qatar that say, listen, I don't want the calls to come to me. So would you just manage the property?
Okay.
And so even people that live here say, I'd rather just not get involved. If the tenant has a problem, they call the company instead of calling the owner. And we take care of that for them. So if you move overseas, you move overseas. The tenant, it sounds Machiavellian to say the tenant doesn't know, the tenant doesn't need to know.
Yeah.
Well, they're just
But
not,
that's why you're
just not
there.
involved.
Yeah.
That's our role to do that. So we have, again, the same people that would buying. The question will always be, what happens when I leave? No, we'll take care of it. And again, I'll come back to it. The government's putting a lot of programs in place, and maybe we can cover off, buyers can get a residence permit through their property. If they want to switch their sponsorship, if they leave and they leave the company, they want to be sponsored by the property, they can, so they can have their RP through the property.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. So Jeffrey Asselstein is going to be answering lots of questions now on WhatsApp, and I did show him how the WhatsApp page looks like. It's flooded with messages here. So Jeffrey, you're gonna have to brace yourself. So here's the first question, Jeffrey. While signing the rental agreement, what points should we check that are included? That's the first question.
Yep.
Can I have a mortgage? There are many types of mortgage to choose from. And the third question here is, what is freehold property?
Okay.
I suppose we can unpack this and circle back to the first question. When signing a rental agreement, what points should we check
Yeah.
in the terms and conditions?
All of them. Number one. So whatever.
No exception.
I would read the contract carefully. I think let me highlight some of the key things. Obviously, the term, when's the start date, when's the end date, all the key stuff, that'd just be obvious. But the things that really need to where I see problems arise, normally are around 2 or 3 key things. So number one is the security deposit cashed or not cashed? So in almost all cases, you'll have 12 rent checks, and then there'll be a security deposit, normally 1 month. Sometimes if it's a fully furnished property, it might be 2 months.
Yeah.
But the question to ask is that deposit cashed or not cashed?
Okay. What does that mean, cashed? You have to pay up front.
So the landlord will actually deposit the check, and that money will come out of your bank account.
Yeah.
Or is it not, where basically the landlord holds it? So normally in that case, it would be an undated security deposit, and the landlord would just hold it. And then at the time of you leave, if there's repairs that need to be done or anything like that, then they would pull on the date, then they'd cash it, and then use those funds.
Okay.
So a lot of people think that all landlords have it undated. It's not. So you just want it to be clear. And if I was a tenant looking at property, I would say to my agent, okay, so for this property, is the check deposited or not deposited? It's just a question you need to know.
Okay.
Because if you don't know and you think it's not going to be deposited or not going to be dated and deposited, it will be a surprise for you.
Okay.
So again, it depends on the landlord, depends on the property, on how to do it. So that's number one. I think number two is about mortgages.
It's about, can I apply for a mortgage against my rent, or when you're buying a property?
So a lot of the banks, so the Qatari banks here most of them offer mortgages for expatriates and Qataris. So the central bank has different rules for expatriates, which are a little bit more challenging than for Qatari nationals, which makes sense. So normally the terms are you have a 30% down payment that you have to pay, and then the number of years you can repay the mortgage, again, would depend on the bank. Normally it's up to about 20 years or your 65th birthday, whichever comes first.
Right, okay.
In my 20s, I never worried about that. But it hit me sometime quite a few years ago now. Once I went past 45, I went, oh, that's now an issue for me. So if you have somebody that's my age, say above 55 and a bit more, I can only take a 10-year mortgage. So that will affect my payments. So the best thing to do, and I would actually recommend this to anybody that's looking to buy. If you're looking to buy from a mortgage, I would actually make my first stop to my bank.
Okay.
So I've worked with a number of the banks in Qatar. All the local banks provide mortgages. So go to your bank, say, this is my salary. In fact, they'll know from the bank account anyways, but this is my salary. This is what I'm looking to do. How big of a property or how much can I buy a property for? And the bank will give you a pretty good idea that, so with the amount of your salary that you have and the amount of down payment that you have.
With all the factors included.
Right. And that helps a lot. So that way, if you imagine you're going Christmas shopping, or you're going shopping for Eid or something, and you have a budget, okay, well, I can spend 1,000 riyals. So when you head out for your shopping, you know how much you can spend.
Exactly.
Same thing in buying a property. It'd be really good if you're looking to take a mortgage, go to your bank, get an idea of exactly how much you can buy.
Yeah.
And then that way you have a discussion with your agent, so you don't get a nasty surprise at the end where you fall in love with the property that we talked before. You fall in love and then you go to the bank and you don't get approved.
Yeah.
So it's good a lot of banks will offer at least initial consultation, and some will even offer a sort of a pre-approval. So you'll even have it in writing that, you could buy up to this amount. And they'll give you that kind of approval based on what you're looking for. And that helps a lot for people.
Right. Yeah. And then finally, what is freehold property?
Yeah. So when most people look at property, they may have never used that terminology before, but it's freehold. In other words, that you own the property, you own it for the life of the property. Let's say if you're, so you have it for the whole time. A different format to freehold is called leasehold. And so that's quite popular in places like England. And again, as a Canadian, I'd never heard of that till I moved to England many years ago, where you own the property, but you own it for a set number of years. Right. So when we first set up the company, when Lusail first started selling, the Pearl was freehold. In other words, you own your property forever. But at the time, Lusail was leasehold. And that you'd buy the property and it's yours for 99 years.
Okay.
And at the end of the 99 years, you're supposed to give it back. Now, I'd always think, well, at the end of the 99 years, I'm not going to be around.
I'm not going to exist anymore.
I might, but I'd like to, but probably won't be.
Yeah.
So the government, I know it was before COVID, so at least 5 or 6 years ago, changed the rules in Lucille that all property in Lucille is now freehold as well.
Okay.
So, but there are a few areas, my pronunciation, apologies, Hungalawina, for example, is leasehold. So it's 99-year leasehold. So again, I would say to any buyer, check with your broker, is the property leasehold or freehold?
Okay.
Now, a lot of people, one of your colleagues, again, before the show started, we were talking, she goes, but the property is only for 99 years.
Yeah.
And I said, well,
but
that used to be the case, but now it's freehold.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, during that, if it is leasehold, you can always sell it to somebody else and they can take on the lease from that stage. So because of the length of the leasehold, it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
If it was we don't have this case in Qatar, but if you had to say a 20-year leasehold, then it's a very different story. But the leaseholds here are 99 years. It's long enough for all of us.
Yeah.
So I don't give it a real second thought.
Yeah, I would say so too. Which, okay, so this is another comment this time. Hey, Chloe and Jeffrey, I've experienced both renting and buying, and I'd love to share my thoughts. Renting was great for flexibility, especially when I was changing jobs often and wasn't sure where I wanted to settle. That was also, you know what, you were telling me about the pros of renting and all the things that you might have to consider why renting is a pro.
Yep.
And in my mind, I mean, I'm kind of nomadic, Jeffrey. I like to live in this one place and maybe try living in a different place
Which is
after a couple
great
of
benefit
years.
of renting.
Yeah.
A great benefit.
So,
and that's why I say it's not throwing away money.
Yeah,
Because you're
precisely.
buying flexibility for yourself.
Exactly. So, okay, so going back to the message here, but buying gave me a sense of stability and the freedom to really make the space my own. So no more asking for permission to hang pictures. One tip, if you're buying, make sure you budget for unexpected costs because they do add up fast. So looking forward to hearing the discussion. This is from Aisha Amanatullah. And okay, unexpected costs. She didn't include it in here, but for somebody who's buying, can you give us like maybe a top unexpected costs to expect?
Yeah.
Quite ironically.
Yeah, I mean, so if I look at, say, an apartment buyer, the kind of the big cost that hits people that they're not expecting is normally AC. So the AC in the flat, they have a problem, there's a leakage or the motor can't, knock. So I just had to I have a property in the Pearl and the AC broke, so I had to pay, say, 1,200 reals to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's normally, and if you're an apartment buyer, that's normally the expenses that you don't expect.
Yeah.
But normally it's a washer and dryer, or maybe the toilet has an issue with piping that you need to fix. So that tends to be fairly controlled for an apartment buyer.
Yeah.
Now, let's say if you own a villa,
Yeah.
then you might have maybe a roof issue or something like that. So that would be a larger expense that you would have as a villa owner as opposed to an apartment owner.
Yeah.
As an apartment owner for, say, the properties in the Pearl or the Sale, you pay service charges to the body corporate that basically takes care of the larger property issues. They take care of the insurance for the property. It pays for the gym and the pool and all those
The
things.
admin fees.
Yeah, all that stuff that you're paying for service charges takes care of all those issues. So you tend not to get surprised a huge amount as an apartment owner. But things can pop up, whether it's a
Yeah.
window or something that breaks, but it tends to be manageable.
Yeah. Because it is, you are, after all, a homeowner now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another message here. This is from Hamad Khan. He says, personally, I think buying is the better long-term move. It's an investment in your future. When my wife and I bought our place, it felt like a big leap, but it was worth it. We're building equity instead of just paying a rent every month.
Yep.
You want to comment on that line?
So I would agree with him in that, why a lot of people do buy is they're tired of paying rent. And so that, say, I'll give you an example that I know of. Somebody, they have a mortgage payment of, say, 10,000 reals that they pay every month. Some of that goes to the bank for interest and some of it goes for principal. So all that principal amount they're paying each month is equity they're building in the property.
Yeah.
And that's a great benefit. I have a lot of, I'll say this quite openly, I have a lot of Qatar Airways pilots, and I say them particularly because I've had a lot of buyers like this, but it does go for others as well, where they receive an allowance from the company, let's say 15,000 reals a month.
Yeah.
If they're living in their own property, then they can receive that $15,000
And it
directly.
goes to
so they
the
pay the
property,
mortgage, and
yeah.
so effectively, Qatar Airways has bought the property for them.
Yeah.
And that's a really smart decision.
It is.
For a lot of people that have that benefit of that kind of job that provides that kind of benefit, and I think it's very generous that Qatar Airways says if you own your own, if you're leaving your own property, we'll give you the allowance in cash.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not stating their HR policies incorrectly, but it's pretty much that.
Yeah.
So that's a great benefit. So a lot of people do take advantage of that, and it's a smart way of investing for the future.
Yeah.
So I certainly agree with him that for a lot of people that's the right decision for them.
And he adds, that said, I totally get the appeal of renting. No maintenance headaches and more mobility. But if you're planning to stay in one place for a while, buying makes a lot of sense. So great topic. And I can't wait to hear more on the show. Thank you, Hamad. Appreciate your message here. Okay, one said, I think this is Shanthi. And Shanthi says, leasing is leasing a better option than renting? Okay, so we did touch on this one, the pros and cons at the beginning of the conversation. And Shanthi says, Qatar is such a safe country to invest in and then live. Well, if you're speaking to somebody like Jeffrey here, who's been in Qatar for
agree.
19 years, he's going to agree off the bat.
I'll just add on to that.
Yes, please.
What I will always say about Qatar is and as I probably mentioned earlier on, before doing real estate, I was a banker for 18 years. So economics is my background.
Yeah.
Qatar's financial stability is unparalleled. Right, the financial strength of Qatar as a country is outstanding, and that provides great stability. We look at safety and security that the government provides to all of us as residents is outstanding. The financial structure, the financial stability of the country is unparalleled, and I think as an investor that gives me a huge amount of comfort. We don't have the huge swings, the huge ups and downs as maybe some of our neighbor countries have from time to time, or even my own country has sometimes. Canadian real estate right now is really struggling. I was having coffee with a Canadian last night and said, property prices in Toronto are really dropping at the moment. We don't have that situation in Qatar. Our fundamentals here are so strong, and that always gives me great confidence moving forward for the country.
You've heard it straight from the expert. Straight from the expert. Fantastic news. Thank you, Jeffrey. Let me get to one more question here, / comment. In your opinion, which is better? Is it to buy a pre-selling property or one that's already built? You want to circle back to that?
It's a quick pro and con. Again, I will go back to my brother's phrase of, you want to sleep at night. So how's the financial payments work for you is a big thing. The great benefit of buying a property which is completed is it's completed.
Yeah.
And it's done. Yeah. There's no delay.
Ready
There's
to
no
move
delivery.
in.
You can check it out. You can see the view. You can, not quite the same comparison as we say back home. You can kick the tires, right? But you can walk around. You can see how does it look, and you got a great feel. So there's a great benefit from being able to see it. However, buying off plan, the payment structure tends to work better for people. You can often get a lower price because when a property is delivered, it tends to increase in value from the moment it's handed over, certainly a small amount at least when it's finally handed over. So if I had a choice, I'd always buy something completed. But a lot of times financially, for me, it's better to buy off plan. So I wish I could have both. It's often quite difficult. So it'll come down often to your financial situation and what you can afford.
Yeah.
So that's really what it comes down to, is what the financial situation of people is. But the great benefit of it being completed is completed and you can see it.
Yes, it's tangible. It's right there.
Totally tangible.
So just additionally, I bought a property, but I'm not quite sure what steps to take next. After the turnover, what should I be aware of? Like fire insurance, property taxes, and any other fees and responsibilities, whether the property is in Qatar or in another country. Jeffrey, that's the question.
So pick up on Qatar. Depending on which kind of property it is, normally if it's part of a development, again, you'll pay service charges, and that will take care of the common areas, insurance for the building. One thing that people forget to do in Qatar, and my colleagues in the insurance industry will love me for saying this,
yes,
is
please.
You should, and this is actually for tenants as well, you should always buy contents insurance.
Contents insurance.
So the inside of the property.
Okay.
So, you have your apartment that you're living in, whether you own it or not. And let's say, unfortunately, you have a fire or something in the unit. That affects your TV, it affects your sofa, it affects your bed, all
your
that sort of stuff.
Your collections, your Star Wars, everything.
Exactly, especially that. So your replica Millennium Falcon, all that has to be taken care of.
Oh, I have just uncovered
exactly.
a nerd here. Okay.
Always. So Again, I would encourage everyone to have contents insurance. Even if you own the property, have it. If you're a tenant, have it. So that if there's any kind of water damage or anything like that, they can check your policy, but you'll be covered. I think the other thing they said is...
and this is the different from a fire, from your fire insurance, yeah?
So... we take a really tragic situation. Let's say the building itself that you bought in, let's say something tragic happens to the building overall. There'll be insurance that will cover the building and it'll cover the common areas, but it won't cover the inside of your property.
Right.
So you're paying for that as through your service charges. So you be protected in that way, but you won't be protected for the stuff inside your property. So take benefit, take confidence that the building will have insurance, but you'll want insurance for your own stuff as well. So make sure that happens. There was actually another part of the question which I forgot.
Okay, so like fire insurance, property taxes.
Oh, yeah, property taxes at zero.
Zero property.
Zero property taxes. Right?
I did
Zero
not
income
know
tax,
that.
zero personal income tax, and zero property taxes. So again, you pay service charges, but zero property taxes.
Oh, we've got zero here. I did not know that.
Yeah. So most countries, your property taxes pays for your schooling, fire, like fire department or the police.
Yeah.
It's zero here.
As a property owner in the Philippines, I got to tell you, Jeffrey, like the property tax is quite crippling.
Is that right?
It is.
Right.
I mean, and it seems to be going up depending on the market.
Yeah.
And it's calculated on an annual basis, so you have to pay for your real estate property tax.
As the property increases, in your property tax.
Exactly.
The property value increases, your taxes increase. Yeah, same thing back home for me too.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I'm going to go back to that word. It can be crippling for some folks. Owning their property in the Philippines. So zero property tax in Qatar. Wonderful.
Exactly.
I did not know that. Thank you for opening my eyes to that. A couple more questions here on our guidelines. Now, Jeffrey, I want to ask you, what is your opinion on the best investment options, such as property, gold, or others, either in Qatar or abroad? As you have been the man of the world.
I'm going to say real estate, of course.
It's still real estate. Okay.
I think there's a lot of very tangible benefits to real estate. It's historically the best proven asset over market's history as far as what actually provides the best overall total return for investors.
Yeah.
Gold has its ups and downs. Gold is pretty useless as a material. It does store value, but actually as an actual fungible material, it's pretty useless.
Yeah. The function there. I mean, you can't use all your gold all at the same time.
Right, and it's extremely heavy. By the way, if you ever actually carry a key, or a large amount of gold, it's exceptionally heavy.
On you, yes.
There are a lot of restrictions on it. It's been seized by governments over the years, so I'm never a big fan. So what I love about real estate is you have the two main things. You have rental income. If you're renting your property out to somebody, you have the rental income that's coming in from the tenant, and then hopefully over a period of time you have capital gains as the property increases in value. And then again, even if you have a mortgage while you're borrowing the money from the bank and you have to pay interest on it, normally your tenant's paying your mortgage for you. And although it's a wonderful, slow way to make excellent returns. So it's not, although people can make money flipping or making money on a short-term basis, if you have a nice long-term view, I feel there's no real better asset than real estate. And a question which I always ask people, because when they compare it, say, to the stock market or something else, I always say, let me know of an individual that that became a millionaire through the stock market. I don't know one.
Firsthand,
Right.
No.
I can pretty much assure you don't know one. And when you ask the question, people say, oh, well, Warren Buffett, who ironically retired this week.
Oh, did he?
So do you know Warren Buffett? No.
Yeah.
No. Okay,
personally?
No, you don't. But I know a lot of people that are millionaires because of real estate.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, slow way to making good return over a period of time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of your takeaway message or best advice for someone renting now, but dreaming of owning a property someday, whether in their current home country or abroad?
Yeah.
Here, abroad, or home base.
So I've not done this, but when I listen to sophisticated or investors that have done really well, and these are just normal individuals that had a normal job, whether it's in Canada, the U.S., a lot of the podcasts you hear, guys in the U.S. particularly, what they will talk about, the ones that have done extremely well, is, and our parents taught us this, and again, I didn't necessarily follow it, but if your dream is to buy real estate and invest in real estate, I wouldn't spend all my money on renting.
Okay.
Right? So save your money. If you're in that rental process and you're trying to save up a deposit, you want to move forward in owning a property, do your best to keep your expenses low, keep your lifestyle, within reason, and rent well within your means, and take that extra money that instead of paying extra rent, they say, okay, instead of having a 2-bed, I'll go with a 1-bed. Maybe instead of a 1-bed, I'll have a studio. I want to keep my expenses down, save as much as you can, and then start putting that money towards future investment. I've not done it, and it's good advice. So this is, the person that's not taking his own personal advice and then doing it. But I would really recommend to people who are serious about doing things is to, forego the
latte factor, as they say.
Have you read the book?
Oh,
there's a great book called The Latte Factor. This is
I
it.
read some.
Okay, well there you go. So you know better than I do, right? How much money do you spend on lattes across your life that you could have bought a house with?
Exactly.
Oh, well said.
Yeah.
You listen to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Another great commentator on these things.
I love it when we have experts on the show. Seriously, and we get these advice for free. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We could not be thankful enough for everything that you have reminded us about, that you've opened our minds to.
Pleasure.
I want to get to one last question here for Jeffrey. If an expat buys an apartment, they get RP. What if they move outside of Qatar? Do they still keep the RP, or is it gone, Jeffrey?
Okay, great question
again.
So for most of the properties that expatriates buy, you can apply for a residence permit. And to put it very simply, you keep the RP as long as you own the property.
Okay.
So again, you talked about people that left Qatar. I have many of our clients that left the country, but still have their RP.
Yeah.
And they come back and they visit. They come in on their RP, and normally it's a 5-year RP. So, once you apply for the RP, you get it. It's a 5-year visa. So I always want to be clear. It doesn't allow you to work. But it allows you to live in the country.
Right.
So if you think of your ID card for expatriates on the bottom right corner, it'll say your sponsor is the name of your company. If you get your RP through the property, it'll say property investor.
There you go.
So I'm sponsored by my company, Nelson Park Property. If I switch to the property, it'll say basically property investor.
Yeah.
And it's for 5 years, and you keep that and until you sell the property. At the end of the 5 years, you can renew it for another 5 years. And this is a fantastic initiative by the government. I have so many clients that have bought and friends that have bought the same. And so I'll just give you an example. Really lovely couple, Algerian couple. They've lived here for 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
Husband worked for Qatar, QP, and now Qatar Energy. Him and his wife met here, got married here. They had their children. They have their grandchildren here.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So they're Algerian. They love Algeria. They go home every year on holiday, but this is their home.
Yeah.
And because of this program from the government, they can stay here. They can stay. They can be close to their children. They can be close to their grandchildren. And they've been a big part of society, contributing to the country over these years. And the government, I think, has, with this incredible initiative, allows people to stay and be part of the community and stay with their families and continue to contribute.
Right.
And the fact that, some people do leave, and I've seen many people bought property, they take their RP, they leave, they're gone for 2 or 3 years, and then they come back again. And they start working again for a different company, or they set up their own business, or they do something. And I think you'll see the country. I'm hearing rumors, and I'll leave it strictly as rumors, that even this program will be enhanced even more in the future. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more come down the line in regard to this program.
That. Yep. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeffrey Asselstein, Qatar real estate expert, and he is the managing director of Nelson Park Properties, among many other things. Thank you so much for all the learnings, for teaching us what we probably still didn't know about the Qatar real estate property market. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Asselstein.